his arraignment for around 6 o'clock hour. He is still somebody that thinks the 6:30 evening news is something to time events for, and that's what he's doing. So far, 9 of the 19 defendants have been booked, and several others have reached bond agreements with the district attorney's team. Among those is Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who traveled to Georgia today, where his bond was set at $150,000, and he was then booked at the Fulton County jail. Here's what Giuliani had to say this morning as he left his New York City apartment.
I'm going to Fulton County to comply with the law, which I always do. I don't know if I plead today, but if I do, I plead not guilty. And I get photographed. Isn't that nice? A mugshot for the man who probably put the worst criminals of the 20th century in jail.
Joining me now from outside that Fulton County jail is Vaughn Hillyard. And Vaughn, I know you got into a spirited discussion there with Rudy Giuliani as he sort of struggles to deal with his legal problems. We know he's got financial problems now because his client doesn't pay some of the bills there. What have you seen today, and how combative was Rudy?
Right. I think it's, spirited was one way to put it. I think that happens when it's 96 degrees and you have, maybe actually 70 or 80 cameras and reporters and others and protesters around you. And you've got the former mayor of New York who literally left his a formal surrender and booking and walked outside of the jail, which this is the exit of, and stood right here. And really, it took a few questions, yet was able to get one very specific one to him. And I'll let you listen to the exchange. And to preface it, the reason it was asked was because 1 month ago in a filing here in Georgia, Rudy Giuliani chose not to contest the fact that he had made false statements about Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, those two Fulton County workers, and the allegations that he had made, the accusations he had made, that they had engaged in voter fraud. He chose not to contest those claims of voter fraud. Take a listen to the attempt to ask him about that and what it could mean for this case and these charges of making false statements. Take a listen.
I entered into a stipulation for the purposes of that case to move on. I specifically says I do not in any way admit the truth of those allegations. Those allegations are totally false.
You did not contest that you made fraudulent claims about the 2020 election, though, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely wrong, and you're lying, as you often do. If you read it, it says it was only for the purposes of that case, and it was not an admission.
You had the opportunity to refute it, though, Mr. Mayor.
We gotta go. We gotta go. So he says that it's not an admission, and in that filing, he says that it is specific to that case, to Giuliani's defense. But this is the complicating part, because the district attorney in an indictment made the direct allegation that he knowingly made false statements in the aftermath of the 2020 election.
Right.
And in the one case that has gone to court so far, this defamation case, he chose not to contest the fact that he made false statements.
Very quickly, Vaughn, there's a couple of people that still haven't made it there. Obviously, we'll have Donald Trump tomorrow. But Mark Meadows, and he's trying to get a suit heard in court before the Friday deadline. What more can you explain about that?
Right. The district attorney's deadline to put to a judge her response to Mark Meadows' request to have his essentially booking deadline, instead of being at this Friday, go into next week, has been submitted by the district attorney's office. Now the judge will rule whether Meadows must appear here in Atlanta by Friday or not. Mark Meadows is making the case that his case should be heard in federal court, and that he says with a hearing slated for next week, he should not have to appear and formally surrender and go through the booking process until it's determined whether a federal court will hear it instead of a state one here in Georgia.
All right, Vaughn Hillyard in Fulton County for us. Vaughn, we're going to miss you in Iowa tonight, but that's all right. That's also a big story down there as well. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.